All right. Amanda, we're live.
Well, thank you, Sean, and thank you for having me. It's so great to be here.
Yeah. I know we've been friends for a while. You've been hard to track down to get on this podcast. So thanks for joining.
Yep.
Um, I know a lot of our audience will know you either personally or from LinkedIn. But I know you as such a well-respected HR executive in the higher ed and just the broader business spectrum. But thanks for joining us. If you wouldn't mind, Amanda, could you tell us a little bit about your backgrounds, maybe how you started in HR and kind of what your career journey looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, let me just say thank you so much, Sean. You were so gracious and kind to keep asking. And so it's wonderful to be here with you. I have to say, I've been very, very fortunate to be in a career that I've stayed in because I truly love the work. Having been in human resources, starting as an individual contributor, and then being afforded opportunities to continue to grow, be mentored by my own leaders that afforded me additional opportunities. So, becoming more expert in specific areas of HR that led to leading people and getting mentored. I'm leading bigger and bigger teams, all the way through different types of organization sizes. That has really helped my career evolve because I was always looking for what's the next opportunity where I can grow and learn more. And my growing and learning, I felt in understanding people and understanding the workforce I knew would be the root of all the foundation for me to understand all the other business aspects, the accounting side, the finance side, the operational side, the compliance side. I felt like understanding people really well taught me how to do that. And so I've been very, very grateful to have all these opportunities of growing my career from single individual contributor, people leader, division leader, and enterprise-wide leader to the role that, I was so happy to have it be you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that, Amanda, and so true to form. You're a really, humble and modest leader. I mean, you've been at some amazing places and have done some amazing work,
Oh, thank
and it's well documented. We won't spend the whole show there, but I'm just curious, if you go all the way back, well, not all the way back, but if you go what got you turned on to HR and people? Was it an early age? Like how'd you find yourself there?
Yeah, no, that is such a thank you for that insightful question, Sean. I think, growing up as a now we have this term first gen. We didn't have that term way back. But as a first gen student, I had to learn very quickly how to navigate, different spaces, try to understand codes of behavior, different things so I could be successful. So, that notwithstanding in terms of getting, formal education, once I entered the marketplace and the workplace formally, I started understanding, "Oh, there's behaviors, and those behaviors are really important to people because I see that's how the work gets done." And I didn't really appreciate what was informing and how the behaviors were being informed. And so I was really, really curious to learn more. And I remember this fondly, and most of my, colleagues like yourself may remember I would say this, I said to my dad, I said, "I really wanna pursue my career, not in law, employment law at the time, but, human resources." And he was like, what is human resources? Like, wha what's a resource for a human being?" And then it immediately dawned on me, probably the term at some point would have to change, but I quickly wanted to explain to him, like, all the tactical everyday ways that I saw people gathering, and I realized when people have relationships at work that are positive, when they feel like, they're coming to work at a place where they're wanted for their expertise, where they could deliver the actual work they wanna do, and walk away being invited to events and have, like, a community. I was like, "That is something I wanna get behind." Like, who stewards that business? And that's really what started me wanting to learn more about this work and frankly treating it as an expertise and a specialty. I don't think HR was always viewed because of the engagement practices we know soundly and well researched are important. It used to be like the fun patrol and the fun police and, right, the 5 o'clock happy hours. I think there's so much more that we've learned about the science and the functional expertise in HR today that we didn't always know back then. But I will say, going backwards, I could honestly say that's what led me here. And I'm grateful every day to have been able to stay in this profession and watch it grow as I've grown with it. So it was great.
Yeah. That's so cool, Amanda. I didn't know that, that
Mhm.
part of your story, and it and it's interesting, right? Like, I'm fascinated by, the word, and the just the idea of balance, right? Uh, uh, always seeking it, probably never achieve it, but, it's neat to hear, um, that, your your curiosity with just, why folks were thinking about things and behaving the way that they were, and that
Yeah.
attachment point to the workplace was what kinda drove your curiosity to get into it. I think it's fascinating. It's neat.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Sean. I mean, I don't think I would have been able to articulate it as well with you this morning, at this point in time in my career, but for the work and for learning and growing alongside, right? Others, mentors, leaders along the way who've really pushed me to stay curious, to leave no stone unturned, if you will. I've heard that term a lot. And those mentors were everything to educate me outside of my formal education and training as an HR professional. And I think I often realize that's the impact of having mentors. That's the impact of being a people leader who care about their team members, who care about their peers. And yes, you're correct. The compass to that, I think, is human resources and human capital, people leaders. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I laugh, Amanda, when eloquently and nicely said, I don't know if the gravitas around the curiosity was I couldn't define it that much back then, right? But, it's clear that it was there, and it's funny, it reminds me of something that, on personally for me, like, I get kind of, dubbed, an empathetic leader, right?
Yes.
And, it's funny, I wish I could, like, you know, wear that superpower, and take all the glory for it, but I boil it down to, and this is going back to a previous career, I was a finance and operations leader, and I got that kind of I don't know, that reputation, because I took care of my people, but
Exactly.
it wasn't this, like, novelty, it wasn't like this, grander calling. It really connected to the business, and I just had a greater appreciation that we needed all of the people on the team, to accomplish what we needed to accomplish, and that they were all very different from each other, so understanding exactly what we could do to support them as they supported the mission, right? Like, and so, what it wasn't like I said, this grandiose, calling. It was more of a maybe, I don't know, self-preservation on my worst day, right? But it was just trying to figure out, like, what do we do to make this thing better and keep it going, So it's cool to hear you talk
Yeah.
about it.
I mean, I think it's really insightful to even hear your experience too, Sean, because it is quite common, right, as you describe it. And I think we had talked about this, before, like, there's this industrial psychology that we've all learned, along the way that's rooted in the workplace still. And we come to have to we have to dislodge this idea that the superpower is the transactional work. The superpower is how you've just described it so well, right? It's taking care of the people who will produce and become effective in their performance, right? And our guidance, our coaching, our facilitation to move it forward, which is, by the way, to me, an ongoing 24/7, never ending responsibility, right? I know you well enough to know Sunday afternoons, Sunday mornings, Saturday evenings, weeknights, you're going home, you're debriefing, finding time, some space with your family, but you're thinking about your people. It is not for the faint-hearted, I have learned, to be an effective people leader because it's a responsibility that doesn't just end when you leave the office. And you're so right. We've all grown up evolving what leadership looks like. And being an empathetic leader, I'd say, is the marquee, the signature type of leadership style that creates the engagement outcomes, the effective business outcomes that we know, well researched today more than ever, is rooted in engagement. Engagement is rooted in how you treat the people, hiring right, keeping the right mix, the balance, coaching, constantly facilitating. And the one thing that you and I know we hear often is, oh, we can't just make the people feel happy. Uh, that's not going to bring the revenue, happy people. Um, or listening to everything the employees say. And I said, you're right. We agree. That's not what that is. So everyone wants to be held accountable. As you and I know, I'm sure you've had these stories, and certainly in HR, I've had them as well, talking to colleagues where, in the room, they would say to me, this is where I started this term culture of care because they would say to me, "Nobody ever told me, Amanda, that those behaviors were offending people or those behaviors weren't producing and moving the team forward. I wish someone had told me." And when I heard story after story of story, right, 3 decades in now, right, of those kinds of stories that have built up, we know there's power in being transparent, helping coach, helping facilitate, and moving the team forward. So I offer that to say there's real science, and I'm grateful for all of the thought leaders that we can leverage, that we've learned from, that I go to conferences, just came back from a conference, um, the insightful presenters you create and you bring to the Boston HR Council, amazing. It really matters. And so it gives me a cadre to hold on to, right? When my team needs innovative thinking, innovative practices, where are we going next as a leader? That's what gives me that opportunity.
I love hearing you talk about it, Amanda, because yeah, it's true to form with you, just as someone who knows you, personally, just in conversation. I feel it from you just in conversation, right? And
Yeah.
I like what you said about, that it's not just making people happy, right?
Exactly.
I think, I mean, shoot, I'm a finance guy at heart, right? I got an MBA. I don't pretend that I'm an HR executive. I've only ever learned anything from you folks, right? But my goodness, being empathetic, I'd actually argue you spend more time,
Yes.
you know, in rooted in um, almost helping folks, understand the reality of, their situation and the reality of getting to where they want to go.
Yes.
That's a hard conversation 9 times out of 10. That's not a, "Oh, sure, I'll give you a rate." That's not the conversation.
Yes.
It's a lot more than that, and, I see ever since I met you, I can see that you operate that way, so it's
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful, and I appreciate, Sean, that you really brought up such a popular topic, right? That can be so polarizing is, not wanting to make everybody happy. Correct. Not everybody's going to be feedback is hard. My leaders, whether they gave it to me soft, whether they didn't, either way, it was like, oh, you feel like, I'm gonna get it right next time. That's if someone is in the workplace, even if they're not in the workplace and they're, working as a consultant and individual contributor as an executive, hearing candid feedback forces reflection, forces growth. And as human beings, that could be a little challenging. It's just like being in the classroom when you're called on and, you have to answer. So you're absolutely right. It may not feel good in that 30-second moment, but that's where the trust comes in. That's where your ability to say to your folks, listen, I got the numbers, I got the finances, here to share with you, here is where you are, here's where I want you to go. But if they trust you, they'll follow you. I still think back, Sean, on fondly on one of the memories that will stay with me a long time. It was an individual contributor whom I promoted onto my team at the time. And I will always remind him of this, and I've said it, publicly in other spaces. I'm happy to say it here because it's the thing that keeps us going as leaders. And he said, Amanda, I don't really know all of what you want me to do in this role, but I'm willing to learn. I want to learn. I want to grow, and I want to follow your vision. And that's what I know most. And I'm telling you, Sean, that that conversation evolved and gave me the commitment to steward that person's growth, their journey, and be so invested because everything they said in that moment said, "I trust you." Right? So it's a impactful thing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's cool for that person, but also cool for you 'cause I can promise you, I don't know that whole story, but I can promise you that, that level of, trust and commitment didn't happen over the course of a couple of weeks and a couple of, approved PTO notes and a pay raise. So
You're so right.
that's a longer fostered thing, you know?
Takes time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It takes time to build that trust. Yeah, indeed.
Well, Amanda, thanks for kinda getting us rooted in the conversation here. I love that the
Yeah.
audience now knows about your background. You've done some great things at some great organizations. Um, what's next? What's like, right now, what are you thinking about? What are you doing next? I'd love to know what you're up to right now.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sean. I mean, I am on this really exciting journey, having held very important positions, have taught me so much where I've grown. And what I'd really like to look for now are opportunities where now I could start helping others and paying that back, paying it forward a little bit, or in frankly, in a lot of ways and spaces. And so while I can't reveal it as clearly today, I will say I am very, very fortunate to be joining a team of experts in their own rights, rooted in the philosophies around what we talked about before, this mission-driven purpose of supporting organizations full scale around all different HR and business functions, offering expertise in not just consultations, but in teams, right? Being able to support the team, sitting alongside the leaders of the team saying, "We're here for you. We're here with you. Tell us what your problems are," because we know the rapid pace of disruption that we are experiencing in the workplace today begs a constant stewardship, I think, of making sure growing leaders, veteran leaders, well-positioned hybrid teams globally and nationally, it requires a lot of work. And being able to steward that and have, a partner with you, I think is really imperative. So I'm really, really excited. You're going to be aware of it very shortly in a couple of weeks. But I'm excited to be able to join this firm and to have, over 50 years they've been in existence, working, creating these partnerships, and for them to, tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, would you like to come do this for a little bit?" It's a wonderful thing, and so I'm excited about those types of opportunities because it's a reflection back that my career has, offered the value add in a lot of different spaces that move at this point, I'd call it organizational effectiveness, the full suite beyond people. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about where my journey is gonna take me next.
That is really exciting. It kinda feels like a almost like a live, like, breaking news a little bit, Amanda, kinda cool, right? And I know we'll get more of the information, as you can share with us in the next few weeks. But that's really neat. I am super excited to watch, what you do in that role and all the places that you'll help. Um, if you don't mind me asking, again, I know you I only know you as this executive operator. How are you feeling about trying something, new, or new for you?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that question, Sean. Like anything else, I think there's always a little bit of trepidation, right? There's always a little bit of uncertainty of, "Ooh, can I do this?" And I've really had to grow, and this is where my mentors and leaders over my course of my career, and even beyond my circle, right, my professional circles, folks like yourself, with every conversation helps build some confidence, right? And kind of mitigates that uncertainty of, will I be good enough? Will I be well? Will I succeed in this? And what I've often reflected on are those kinds of mentor conversations of, you've always been good enough, right? It's how much investment, how much time, how much commitment do you really want to put in? And the why? What's the value for you? And I've come at this point in my career to understand opportunities that accord and resonate with my character and with my values are probably the most important to me at this time. And I say that because it's not every opportunity that I've been in, and as the opportunity unfolds, I'm like, "Ah, I should have researched this a little bit more. I didn't know this piece." And, and my ability to adapt has helped me succeed through the role. I think now being judicious to ask those questions well in advance helps build my confidence that I could do the thing that I don't think I could do. So, yeah, it's a little bit like, I don't know what's around the corner, but I'm excited to find out, and I've done the research, I've asked the questions. I feel like I've prepared myself well enough that whatever's around the corner, I'm prepared for it. And so that's certainly helpful because there's gonna be things we don't know, right? And being a parent certainly helped me kind of figure out, like, you can have the best laid plans, you turn around the corner, it's not that at all, and then you just gotta keep going. So that's been very helpful.
Yeah, well, it's exciting, Amanda, I can't wait to hear exactly what it is that you're doing because I'm gonna be very excited when someone in my network says, "Ah, geez, Sean, I'm struggling with this," or "We're having a tough time with that," and I'm gonna say, "Well, you gotta call Amanda Bailey. Like, here, man, he's the one that's gonna help you figure it out." So I'll excited the more info on it.
I appreciate that. And you know me, Sean, if you say call Amanda Bailey, I'm gonna take that call.
I do know that.
Oh, and I appreciate that. No, but it's very exciting, and, I really am looking forward to having the opportunity in all different ways and spaces, right, of taking all the years, all of the relationships, and, turning to something, Sean, that you and I talk about all the time, and you give us a chance to talk about in the BHRC, which is where are we going? Where are we going with the workforce? What's happening next? I cited, the disruption, and I think all of the behaviors that we're seeing through remote work, through hybrid work, the economic disruptions that naturally come with markets, right? All these external forces that are happening require strong collaboration and a constant stewardship. I will say one thing that does keep me up at night, because I think about this work all the time. One thing that does keep me up at night is how are we managing, right, the aging population, and how are we thinking about the benefits and having those conversations with executive and business leaders to create that effective business model for them. How are we managing all the 5 to 6 generations that are coming up quickly in the workplace and keeping our dear friend Johnny Taylor talks about this a lot, Johnny Taylor Jr., from SHRM. How are we keeping the boomers engaged who want to be engaged, who have so much more to still offer? How are we doing that? And how are we taking care of them? And for generations like yours, mine, that sandwich generation. I've been so incredibly invested for personal reasons we'll talk about on another podcast on, how are we managing long-term care and those long-term care benefits. Those full suite of benefits we know impact financial wellness, impact stress at work, the stressors that we talk about to keep our people and their mindset, right? Those are things that I think are quickly approaching because the technology with AI is forcing us, right, to think, work, and manage in different ways. We still don't know, and we will continue to learn the impact of AI in so many different ways. But I always, as we started, right, people leaders have to think about the people. And when I think about the stressors that I've personally witnessed, that I know you've seen firsthand as well, when people can't afford to take care of the medical bills of a loved one because they can't be on their healthcare plan, right? There are just so many innovative ways that you and I and other leaders can help impact the workforce. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I'm excited about what possibilities exist for us to have those conversations.
Touched on a lot there, Amanda, and yeah, I'm always fascinated by again, this idea of balance and the kind of the duality of humans, right? Like the fact that we're all the same, right, relative to our needs, right? But we're all so different, right? And so it's trying to lead with that in mind, right?
Yeah.
And then as you alluded to, you enter the sixth generation, right? Like generationally you could make the inference that generationally, right, those differences are a little bit closer than they are across the whole spectrum, but now you have, 6 generation of different kinds of folks that appreciate different things or looking for different things. Number 1, how do we manage all 6? But I think even just as important or maybe more important is how do we get the 6 of them to spend more time and learn from each other because so much to learn when everything, at least from a technology standpoint, is being built to kinda separate us,
Separate.
to silo us. That's the part that's really fascinating,
Yeah, you are so right. I see that dichotomy more and more and more as technology has advanced us, right? There's been tremendous productivity with technology, but there's also a need to manage the risk of the use and not siloing ourselves. I find myself doing that. I mean, if I go on to, a social media site on a Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m., I have to time myself because it could very well be it's a whole universe, right, of activity. And it's just me in my head and this virtual community. And so when we're talking about the community we build at work, at the office, and away from the office, I think that's why the incredible impact of that is being able to exchange that information. We learn so much more, right? If I'm on there 15 minutes, you're on there 15 minutes, you see different news or updates or insightful pieces of information that you can share with me, and I could do the same. But that human interaction has to make that interchange happen, because that's how we learn. That's just biologically how we learn and manage, right? From a physiological perspective, being in that community, and learning from each other. So it's an exciting time. I'm not while I think some leaders often get concerned about the risks because they could be overwhelming. I'm excited at the prospect and being able to address these challenges that we can now articulate are keeping us apart or can create better effective running organizations, because it allows us, the more conversations we have, the more we can research, the more we can learn, the better we're going to get. So I'm excited by it, actually.
Same here, Amanda, and yeah, I mean, it's just like any technology, right, or any innovation, right? It's gonna be exciting. It's gonna help a lot of things. There's eventually gonna need to be some governance, like, all those things are gonna be true and can be true, but, um, it doesn't in my opinion, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend too much energy worrying, preparing is different than worrying, but, like, but again, I that's just my own opinion.
Nope, totally agree.
Well, you kinda brought us here, Amanda. I
Mhm.
wanna spend the last part of our conversation, and this has been so fun.
Thank you. I had fun too.
The what's next, right? Like,
Yeah,
the you've spent a lot of time thinking about the future of the workforce, the future of, how HR and executives in general are gonna be tasked with leading a future workforce. Uh,
right.
I know you as a very hard worker, so I know, maybe the recent, days and weeks that you've had off might be the first time in a while that you've been able to kinda sit exclusively with your thoughts on this, but, like, tell us more about what you're thinking about, what the future holds, what we're gonna be challenged with, what excites you. I'm just curious about that whole sphere, in your brain.
Yeah, well, thank you. And sometimes it could be a blessing or a curse, right? Like when you have all this time now, because when you love the work, and we love our work, we do have a chance to start researching more, looking into things. And so, what I think is, there are several big buckets. We talked a lot about the technology disruption. I think that's commonly discussed, and I'm grateful for those discussions happening at rapid scale. I think it's incredibly important. What I wanna also keep our radar on is to steward discussions and continue the research on our aging workforce, because I think that there's incredible knowledge sharing that can happen, Sean, with specific members of the workforce today, and I'm not so sure that we're all able to capitalize on learning what we can learn from those members of the workforce who have a lot to give back. And so everything around their whole life cycle, right? How do we learn from them from a reverse mentorship perspective? Are we actually managing the physical needs through technology and health science, which we know is happening at rapid scale? Joints, all of the work that we know, for example, at Sargent College and rehabilitation services, and Jack Dennerline is, wonderful, experienced dean there. And being able to think about how are we using technology to manage our health and create for that population specifically. How do we onboard? How do we develop and learn from them? How do they develop? How do they get their own health taken care of and their needs being met? This is where my focus has been. I almost feel like it's an entirely unique life cycle that needs to be in different ways and spaces, compensation, benefits, because they're tailored, they're different by the mere needs being different. And in order to make them effective and productive, which they're ready and capable and wanting to do, I think there needs to be more attention paid to what are those actual needs? How do we hire them? How do we onboard these members of this specific population segment of the workforce? How do we compensate them? What are the benefits that really matter to them? Right? What's the legacy? They're already at that point of having either created legacy or and wanted to do more, or they haven't been recognized yet for their legacy and they want to contribute. So how do we amplify that from an engagement perspective? For me, it's almost visually like an entirely different life cycle that is customized and could be acculturated organizationally to bring them in the fold. And I think that's how we get to address some of the things you mentioned before, creating that disconnect and creating some norms, right? I have found, and I think other colleagues you've had on your show, certainly through the council, I've learned from other HR executives that reverse mentoring is challenging. It's a lot of work to do. But when it's done well, it's incredibly impactful. As I mentioned, right, the long term care benefits is something that is, I think, an incredibly necessary national topic that has to be talked about, frankly. So that's what I've been thinking about in my last, my little bit of time.
Some complex, thought processes there, Amanda, and it's interesting, the part with, that part of the workforce, not to oversimplify, but um, I had breakfast, with a partner at Lockton, which most folks know it's the firm that I work for,
Yeah.
um, a couple weeks ago, and he's right on the kind of the end of um his time with the firm, and he's gonna be retiring,
Wow.
and, we had breakfast. It was it wasn't formal, it was, I was kinda extending my appreciation. He was kind of, talking about, my approach to business, and he said something specific to sales. I won't put it on the podcast to put it on blast. It was very elementary, it
Mhm.
was very powerful, and it was perfect is what
Yeah.
I'm saying, right? And it came from a place of experience and trial and error and, and I when he said it to me, my mouth kinda dropped and I said,
Yeah.
"So and so name, that could be a meme. That could be a sales meme that would go, like, ultra triple viral or whatever."
Exactly.
He said
I totally agree.
he said, "Joe, what the hell is a meme?" And I said, like, he's like, "I don't know what that means." And then he said, Secondly, double, triple viral, like, kinda know what that means, like, a lot of people would see it on social media." He's like, "What? Does that matter?" It was a good question, right? Like,
It is a great question.
and then it does a regular and it got me thinking, I'm like, "Geez, every person in my organization needs to have this breakfast and have this conversation," right? And so, to your point, Amanda, about the transfer of knowledge, right? Uh, I'd also, again, just knowing, folks in each one of these generations, and again, I don't like to overgeneralize, but for the sake of the conversation, we will.
Yeah.
Um, the connectivity between each one of them is unique in its own way in and of itself, right? Because of the profile and because of just in some of the characteristics of folks in that time of their life. So
Right.
almost just figuring out those individual relationships between those sets of folks in and of itself is quite the work, but is so meaningful and would be so impactful, So,
Yep. I agree.
you got my brain spinning a little bit here, Amanda.
But you said it so well, Sean, because of that's such an excellent, excellent example, right? Of learning, right? Real-time learning, on-demand learning, like we like to call it, right? It was an unforgettable moment. You're not going to forget what your takeaway was from there. And when we talk about reskilling, I want to just bring up the dynamic that we keep at the forefront, right? Reskilling is what we talked about, like, before, like, it's transactional work. It's understanding the technology and advancing that. And I want to bring into the fact that reskilling is also the behavioral skills, behavioral experiences, and that type of foundational learning that we have access to. And tapping into that circle could have been, I'm sure, you, Sean, and maybe 4 other colleagues, right? So that's now you're going to the triple right, right? Because now it's 5 times that, and now every one of you who knows can share that story, right? So the rapidity, right, that rapid pace of being able to share that type of knowledge, that's what I think I'd like us to pay attention to in all of the ways and spaces that we can, because that's what evolution is, right? It's making sure we know that taking away what's great, we learn this in formal training, we learn it, experiential training, taking away the good, taking the lessons learned, combining it, and you make an amazing outcome, right? A suite of outcomes then becomes really possible. So I'm really excited at the prospect. I love that you shared that story. I'm thinking I may schedule a few breakfasts of my own if I can.
Well, Amanda, this has been great and such a long time coming. I just want to I want to finish with one question.
Sure.
Um, the show's grabbed a really good following, and a lot of the folks that follow are folks that are early on in their HR and people careers, like
Mm,
1 to 3 years, and really look up to the Amanda Baileys of the world and say, "Geez, I would really like to lead this function someday." What's your biggest piece of advice to somebody who is early on in their HR and people career who
right.
aspire to move up the ladder, for lack of a better cliche?
Right. Well, thank you also, Sean, for this time. It's been a long time coming. I agree. And thank you for always, always wanting to bring such insightful topics and bring it out in these conversations. I will say that for, entry level HR professionals, finding out what you really like to do. I often encourage entry level HR professionals, individual contributors on teams that I've led, take the time and go talk to another colleague on another team, because we tend to, and this is not just HR, this is all business functions in the workplace. We tend to remain very siloed and want to vertically manage up because we think our supervisor is everything. And what I try to share with them is your supervisor actually wants you to connect with other people, because they know that you're learning those other functions will make him, her, and all of those supervisors out there leading small and teams alongside you. It will make your work much easier. You cannot just lean vertically on the person you're reporting to help manage all the relationships, manage all the new learning that the team can benefit from. So take that responsibility. Be curious. Always stay wanting to learn. Staying in learning mode, I think, offers a lens by which you won't ignore cues, because you won't walk into a room saying, "Oh, I already know that." You may not. So just check, learn it, and I would say development is not just linear, right? It's learning across from your peers. It's learning from even your supervisor's peers who you have access to. And as soon as you have that access, take it. Being in the room is equally important, even if you're not speaking, just being in the room. So take the opportunity if you get invited. I've often, and I've had to learn that, right? Like, don't decline the invitation. If it's something that you want to learn more about, or there will be other leaders in the room who you can interact with and learn from, take those invitations. And, frankly, Sean, like you and I talked about even before, some of those invitations may not be at the office. So you may have to make a decision. Do I go to the game tonight or do I go to this event? Right? Those are real intersectionality. Like, those are decisions you have to make, and only you can make those, right? As a professional. So I try to be as candid and open with those types of points, right? To remember that I hope will help them quickly gain the knowledge and expertise that they need and build very, very reliable and productive relationships.
Geez, what a great answer, Amanda.
Oh, thank you.
Amanda, well
It's rooted in experience, that's for sure.
well, Amanda, thank you very much for coming on. This was great. Looking forward to sharing the news of your full what's next as soon as you let us know. But I know the whole BHRC community will be behind you.
Oh my goodness. Sean, thank you. Thank you to the BHRC. Thank you to you, your locked in colleagues in the community. I can't wait for the next event to happen. And I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
All right. Have a great day.